What's the best way you've seen someone rebel against school rules? Just after the Virginia Tech shooting. When I was in high school, the administration banned backpacks, messenger bags. Purses were okay though. One guy shows up to school with a purse. They suspended him for 2 days. The next day, most of the guys showed up with purses carrying all of their things. They lifted the backpack ban. Edit. Looks like it wasn't just my school either. When I've heard of this. The rule is the purse can't hold a notebook. Which is stupid because a handgun is smaller than a notebook. I went to a Catholic grade school growing up that had a strict boys' hair length policy. It couldn't touch the collar of your shirt and I wanted long hair. So the principal came in one day to talk to the class. When she was leaving the room she called me out for my long hair in front of my classmates. My response was to point to the cross hanging above the door and said Jesus had long hair. She didn't know what to say right away and seemed embarrassed, but then pulled me outside and yelled at me to get it cut. Don't mess with Catholic nuns. Back in the 1980s there was one kid in my school was hardcore into the punk scene. Had a bright blue, 6 inches high, razor thin, stand up straight mohawk. The principal gave him detention for being a distraction, etc. And his parting words that day were "and tomorrow, no more blue mohawk!" Exclamation point. The next day the kid came in with the same mohawk, only bright pink. Senior year. My school banned jackets. A friend was cold. Wore his jacket to lunch. And the VP told him to take it off. Friend pulls out the student handbook and asked where it said he couldn't wear it. VP flips for a while and ends up showing him the dart. Or anything the administration seems disruptive. Clause. Friend rolls his eyes but takes off his coat. The next day, friend comes in with the same tweed sport coat the VP wore every day. Who the hell bans jackets? My school did once. They said it was dangerous if there ever was a fire. How the hell they came to that conclusion I know not. However, the school was really poorly built with concrete walls and next to no heating, so at some times of the year the indoor heat fell below 15°C. The Work Environment Authority recommends an indoor temperature of 20-24°C. We told our teachers to basically either let us wear jackets or fix the heating, otherwise we would report them. They let us wear them. Not me but my friend's dad, so a good 50 years ago. His teacher told him his tie was the most important part of the uniform and he had to wear it no matter what. That lunchtime he gathered half his school year and the next day, about 100 people turned up wearing nothing but underwear and a tie. My brother missed enough school during the year that the school required he attend summer school. The penalty for not attending summer school? You'd be kicked out of summer school. So he never went. And they didn't hold him back. Because he knew all the material. When I was in grade 7. Our last class of the day. Students would always bring in snacks. Our lunch shift was way too early in the day. So by the end of the school day we'd all be feeling hungry. And we were all told by our teacher that if we didn't have enough to share we couldn't eat in the classroom. One day, almost all of us brought in enough food to share. Even with the students that didn't bring anything in. We even synchronized the times that we pulled all our food out. Our teacher was clueless. She had no idea what to tell us. There wasn't any school-wide no food in classrooms rule. So she couldn't run to the principal. Finally she gave in to our malicious compliance and allowed us to share food for the rest of the period. Soviet anthem plays. In my private school boys were required to wear a collared shirt. It really wasn't enforced. Until one day it was. I was wearing a sweater without a collared shirt underneath and I had to go back to the dorm and change. I argued that I didn't look ratty or underdressed at all. But they said rules were rules. The next day I wore a white t-shirt with a collar, cut off from one of my older shirts, stapled to it. It looked terrible. But rules are rules. After 9/11 my school made a rule where we had to wear our school lights. They went overboard quick, handing out detention to anyone who didn't wear one. One kid had his ID blown up and put on a shirt. On the back it said, "Yes, I'm wearing my F-King ID." He got attention for not wearing it with the shirt. We had to do that too. But then everyone started using them as weapons and whipping the shit out of each other in the hallway, or Indiana Jones snapping it at St. Peter's. It lasted less than a year before they took them away. Yeah. The kids at my old school kept breaking open lockers with them. That was fun. We had to do that after Columbine. Some genius decided that they should have our picture, name, year, and full address printed on the front and had to be worn on a neck lanyard at all times. Even when teachers with children at the school complained, the administration didn't want to backtrack. They threatened students who obscured the info with stickers with punishment for vandalism. Then suddenly it all went away. I wouldn't be surprised if the school district lawyer had some concerns. Someone stole a key from the janitor. He just left them on his desk. It happened to be a universal key to all the locks, except for the server room. The server room, although, had a second hidden door which they found. They came in after school and stole the servers from the school. All the grades and data for the students were on those servers. The teachers had to figure out how to recreate all the students' grades, which honestly they did poorly. Pretty much everyone passed every class. You could just argue for a better grade. A kid was passing notes, and the teacher caught him and insisted he had to give the note so she could read it out loud. He ate the note. I can only imagine what it said that he felt the need to eat it, lol. Sure. But you'll have to wait about 6 to 8 hours. When I was in high school, there was a rule implemented that if you showed up late to school, you had to go to the front office to get a detention slip. You would then have to give it to the teacher for that period, who would then mark it down. And you were required to go to lunch detention for that day. I figured out by the third slip that literally no one cared, teachers, security, or students. So when I was subsequently late for the rest of the year, I would take out an old slip that I had from a previous detention, walk through school, give it to my teacher to mark down, then take it back to give to the lunch detention supervisor. But I never went to detention because the front office didn't have a record of me being late. I was late no less than 50 times my senior year, only having been reprimanded the initial 3 times. I even told my parents about it after I had graduated, and even they agreed it was dumb and funny. I was at a private school that had rules about the length of boys' hair. One guy in particular always ignored the rule, and the administration would tell him to get a haircut every so often. But he never did. Eventually, when his hair got about down to his shoulders, the principal pulled him aside and told him his hair was twice the allowed length and by next week it needed to be shortened by half. Monday rolls around and he comes in with half his head shaved, and the other side as long as ever. We were impressed by literal interpretation of the principal's request, but it still ended up with him getting a suspension for a week, and he had to shave the other side before he could come back. Hey Joe, aren't you supposed to be in class? Yeah. One word. Doesn't look like much in text, but he said it's such full acceptance and resolution that the teacher didn't follow up or say anything else. Just, okay. Got it. You're not going. I'll move on and not waste any more time here. And they kept walking. Sometimes attitude is everything. Sometimes you can say a lot with a single word. Guy was wearing shoes against the uniform policy and was asked to put on shoes from lost property. He went around school barefoot all day. How does a pair of shoes end up in lost property? I'm imagining another kid at some point also walking around all day barefoot like HMM. Wonder where the duck my shoes are? During my senior year of high school, 2008, my school got super strict about cell phones. It got to the point that we weren't allowed to have them out during any point in the day. Not even during our lunch period. They claimed that we would send each other tests answers or something like that. Anyway, a friend of mine who was a year below me was tired of the rule and how rude teachers were when enforcing it. He literally looked at his phone to check the time and got it taken from him for the rest of the day. That next week he comes to lunch with 2 old and non-functioning flip phones. He takes the first out and pretends that he's talking to someone on it. A teacher was instantly on him. They walk over and hold their hand out for him to give it up. He looks at the teacher and then proceeds to break the flip phone in half and puts it in their hand. The teacher was speechless. She just walked away without saying anything. He takes the second phone out and does the same thing again. The second teacher thought it was pretty funny. Flash forward to 2015 and I start working at the school as a student mentor. And now everyone is allowed to have their phones out pretty much at any time. How things change. My school had the same rules. We would play on our calculators in class and make it look like we were on our phones, so when the teacher came to take it away, they were rather embarrassed. They realized they fell right into our trap. Likewise, some kids would purposefully get their phones taken away only to have a friend spam call the phone that got taken away to cause even more of a distraction. After the Columbine shooting, our school banned black trench coats. For the most part, nobody cared. Except the mysteriously gothic trench coat kid. He had worn a trademark black trench coat every single day because it made him different. And then all of a sudden the school tells him he can't do that anymore. So the kid went out of his way to find, or make, different colored trench coats and wore those instead. My favorite one was covered in duct tape. TLDR. Gothic Joseph and the Technicolor trench coat. My daughters both went to Catholic high school. My younger one had a bit of a wild streak. The girls were required to wear a skirt every day to school. My daughter did not care for this rule and wore her skirt around her head one day since the dress code required the students to wear a skirt. Just not wear. I was told that she was wearing spandex underneath. That's how my daughter got a new rule in her high school dress code. Ooh, that's a good one. I also rebelled against that rule at my Catholic high school. First I wore pants until I got too many detentions. So I started wearing the absolute most obnoxious outfits that fit the dress code. Generally a leopard print skirt, knee-high zebra socks, and some other loud shirt. Or I would wear pants under the skirt. They changed the dress code the next year. Girls got to wear pants again. Elementary school had a ban on extreme hair colors. My brother shows up with fire truck red hair. Principal stops us both as we're entering the school and she's going off on my brother. She's berating him, saying, "Who do you know that has red hair like that?" Without skipping a beat. Ronald McDonald. Principal just grabbed him, dragged him into the office. My 4th grade brain was in shock that he just one-upped a grown-up like that. She called my dad and he promptly didn't give a duck, and months later bro went from red to green to purple. Teacher said boys need their shirts tucked in. Never said how much needs to be tucked in. So when one of my friends got told to tuck in his shirt, he stood still, used one finger, and tucked in a tiny portion of the back of his shirt into his pants. Then walked off. Was later called to the office because they thought he was acting out and not obeying rules. But the kid's parents said that he followed the rule. It never said the whole shirt needs to be tucked in. So the principal, secretary, and teacher all have to let the kid off. The next day, the principal makes an announcement to the whole school that boys need to have their entire shirt tucked in the entire way. We laughed about it. Someone should have taken off their entire shirt and put it in their pants. Or got a giant pair of pants that went up to their shoulders. The canteen stopped selling sachets of red sauce due to the mess some kids were making. My friend carried a huge bottle of red sauce in his bag for at least a month and provided illegal red sauce for the cost of 5p per squirt. Made a fortune. This was prior to smartphones circa 2002. One of my classmates was a regular class clown. He would buy brownies in the cafeteria and roll them up in his hand so they looked like a convincing piece of poo. He would then do all sorts of antics with this poo. Put it on seats, throw it at people, what have you. Obviously the school staff caught on and he got in trouble. This guy didn't go quietly though. He was required to sit alone at lunch for the entire school year. There were months left before summer. The one teacher who made sure his punishment was severe made regular rounds of the lunchroom to maintain order. She would pass his lone seat during her rounds. One day he made another very convincing pastry sauced poo and had it ready for her when she passed. The entire lunchroom was watching out of the corner of their eyes while maintaining an alibi conversation with the people close to them. When she passed, he stood up and snuck behind her and slipped the pastry poo in her purse that she was carrying on her shoulder, and he quickly ran back to his seat. The lunchroom burst into laughter and the teacher had no idea why. Until later, of course. The dude was an artist at rebellion. You really have to be a psychopath to do this. And by this I mean forcing a kid to eat alone for a whole year. In high school during the student body president election, my friend started a campaign that was kind of a meme at the time. It was a poster that featured a green faceless figure in a suit that said, "Vote for nobody. Nobody tells the truth. Nobody will fight for you. Nobody cares." With nobody being personified as this faceless figure. We put up posters for it with all the others and even started a Facebook page for jokes. My buddy even had a green full body morph suit and planned on running on stage during the other speeches and dancing around. Eventually the admins got word what he wanted to do and called him in and told him if he so much as even went to the assembly in costume or not he would be suspended. So he didn't go to the assembly and all the posters were taken down. Instead he just showed up to school in the suit and just walked around waving at people and giving finger guns at passers-by. He was suspended anyway and went down as a legend for it. True story. Our school had a rule that boys couldn't wear shorts. Girls could wear skirts. Though. In the deep south it gets hot. Shoes were not in the dress code. I didn't wear shoes for 2 weeks. Other folks followed suit. School amended their dress code that year. Added shorts and shoes. Friend was told in high school by his guidance counselor not to waste his time applying to his dream school because he wouldn't get in. He got pissed off and went to the principal, who told him it was the counselor's job to give her best opinion. So he trusts whatever she says. He applied anyways. And got in. He took the acceptance letter, made a copy, and taped them to both the principal and counselor's door with "thanks for nothing" written on both. He didn't even go to that school. He couldn't afford it. But it was the principle of the matter. We had an awful Spanish teacher in middle school who collectively punished the class by making us write the same sentence 100 times over in detention. On one of these occasions my friend and I asked her if we could type our detention in the computer lab. This was when computers in schools were a new thing, so we could improve our typing speed. And she said yes. Anyway, we didn't do much typing but did learn how to write a basic program that printed the same line 100 times over. Update. Because this blew up, we didn't copy paste because our computer teacher took this as a teachable moment and or opportunity for malicious compliance. And showed us how to do rudimentary programming instead of cheat our way through it. Also, copy paste might not have been invented yet. Those of you posting solutions need to keep in mind that the program also needs to print the line number before each repeat. Otherwise how else will MRS Cortez know you typed exactly 100 lines? Lol. Our chemistry teacher had us enter all the answers to our labs in a basic program he wrote that would self-grade our results. I wasn't very good in chemistry but I was good at basic. Easy A's in chem lab that year. I had a friend in high school who would stand around on campus nonchalantly smoking cigarettes. And would bring beer to drink at break and lunch. He gave 0 FKs who saw him and oddly enough he never got in trouble for it. He recently got out of prison. Well, that escalated at an understandable rate. At my middle school you weren't allowed to use phones on campus. Including after school. A lot of my friends and I had no choice but to stay late after school, so we asked our security guards if we could use our phones and his answer was, as long as your butt is on this campus. You can't use your phones until after 4. We also had a rule saying that once you left campus, you can't come back without a reason, like an extracurricular activity. Lucky for us, there was a sidewalk right outside the school that we could sit on while still having our feet on the campus. So we would sit our asses down on the sidewalk and still be on campus. We could use our phones and we could still stay at school. No hats in school. In high school junior year, there was this one kid in my grade that was allowed to due to him having alopecia universalis, which is basically having rapid baldness. A new teacher wasn't aware that he was allowed to and asked him to take it off. The kid explained why he was able to, but the sub didn't believe him, forced him to take it off, and was being very cruel to him for wearing the hat his lack of hair. The next day, everyone wore hats to school as a sort of rebellion against the teacher. She got really mad and started yelling at the students and said some nasty things. She got fired. Last year our school fetched in a ban on backpacks and bags in general since they were apparently a safety hazard. 2 days later some guy in my year group comes in carrying his books and pencil case in a microwave. Dude made national news. Last day of senior year, we started a food fight at lunch. And by food fight, I mean we drew angry faces on an orange and an apple. Then faced them toward each other. Made a big circle around them. And we all reacted like we were watching a fight. All the security guards ran to break up the fight, only to make their way to the middle of the circle to find 2 pieces of fruit sitting on the ground. Edit. Lots of comments about security guards in schools. In the USA it's just so common I don't even think about its bizarreness anymore. In many states here, schools not only have a security guard, but a police officer as well. Should they just let him test out of it to begin with? In middle school I had to retake my algebra class because I did basically nothing all year. Even though I got a perfect score, a solid 15 points above the next best grade, on the standardized test at the end. Some bullshit there. Funny thing was, the teacher used the exact same example problems with the same numbers. So I'd shout out answers to questions he was still in the process of writing on the board. Eventually that got the point through to him that I had no business being there, so he just let me do whatever I felt like as long as I stopped disrupting class.